Hi, welcome to our panel. We are so excited to have you here today. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I'm Melissa Painter. I'm the founder of Breakthrough Immersive. We make movement-driven micro breaks that are built and based in real time. All of our work has focused on using real-time engine to inspire people to move their bodies and for the sake of well-being. And I'm very proud and happy to be here with this panel today because I think that we all share a passion about using real time to make experiences with meaningful impact on people's mental and physical well-being. So thanks to Unity for having us, and thanks to all of you for being here. And I'm going to start first with Sarah Hill, who's going to tell us about her journey as a creator and her product. Sarah is the CEO of Helium. It's a digiceutical for anxiety powered by your body's electricity. She's a former TV journalist who has won 12 Mid-America Emmys, and she creates at the intersection of immersive media and bioinformatics, like brain patterns and heart rates, and calls herself a biometric storyteller. Sarah, welcome. We're so excited to hear more.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a former television journalist, covered a lot of trauma,
Give us
rapes,
1 second
murders.
to fix your mic.
Okay, sounds good.
I
Can
think if
you
we
hear
just
me
turn you
now?
up, you'll be good.
Okay, great. So, former television journalist, spent decades chasing ambulances, is what the job requires: rapes, murders, homicides. We went in with the trauma teams in the aftermath of the tsunami in Sri Lanka and in Indonesia, both. And ultimately, that media diet that I had chosen to consume via my job made me sick. Started struggling with insomnia, which led to panic attacks, and developed Helium, HEALIUM, for me, as well as the millions of people who struggle with anxiety and want to feel better, perform better, and sleep better. So I create immersive media, virtual and augmented reality escapes that are powered by biometric data from any consumer wearable. So EEG, meditation headbands, smart watches, in the future, blood pressure, muscle tension. And we create stories with your own body's healing powers inside yourself.
Can you talk about what you've learned in terms of the feedback loop on people when you're able to share back their data in a way that has the story component versus just being numbers, just being dots?
Right. So, from a therapeutic perspective, we've studied immersive media compared to regular 2D media and 2D assets a lot. When you're in virtual reality, the experiences are more emotionally engaging and more memorable. And as we all know, VR has been shown to be just as effective as a dose of Dilaudid, a powerful painkiller. And the brain ultimately believes what it sees. So, the ability to see your own brain patterns and heart rate streaming inside the experience and controlling those assets in near real time is powerful for people. I mean, can you imagine exercising a muscle or doing a bicep curl and you never had the ability to see your arm? So, training with your own biometric data, and not just close your eyes and meditate, but open your eyes and become more self-aware of those thoughts and emotions and how they're controlling those experiences. So, very powerful tool for mental fitness, and not being reactionary with mental health care in democratizing it, but actually training for it so that you do have some kind of mental health armor to protect us all in this mental health emergency that we're experiencing. This is the Stress Olympics. Not everyone has trained for it, and everyone in this call today has some unique role to play as a creator in providing drugless, non harmful coping mechanisms that people can quickly downshift their nervous system.
I wanted to go back to what you were talking about a media diet. And I think it's always really interesting makers that lean into real time and inviting the users to be creators in their own experience, essentially. What did you discover transitioning from traditional media to real time about the power of that interactivity, if you will?
Yes, so we are what we consume in the media. And as a former, a journalist, the media is not a bad entity. You need that information to keep you safe, to know who to vote for, who not to vote for. Is there a child molester living next door to me? Is there a tornado about ready to hit? You need that information. But when you surround yourself with so much negativity day after day, ultimately that misplaced, unbalanced, just like a food diet, that digital nutrition that you're taking, if you're not injecting, some positive fiber in your media diet, like what these individuals in this call have created, ultimately it will make you sick. And so, in the coming years, we're going to hear a lot about the ability of media, immersive media, as a tool to make you more self aware of your emotions and to remind you that your thoughts, what you think about in your head, do have power to control things, not only in the virtual world, but in the real world as well, to improve your own media diet.
Amazing. So just to let everyone know fast how this panel will go, each creator is going to come forward and talk about their piece, and then we'll all join back together to answer questions at the end. So Sarah, thank you so much. And Rosemary, you should come join. I'm so excited to talk about your game. Rosemary is the producer and writer of the award-winning mental health game Shadow's Edge, a game based on narrative therapy. And it helps young people build resilience in the face of hardship. I just love the term narrative therapy. It's such an incredible, powerful way. And I'm very excited to hear you talk with us. Welcome.
Thank you. It's also not really a new thing. So I'm from the D&D project with the creators of Shadow's Edge, and it's a nonprofit that is focused on helping kids, adolescents, and young adults take charge of their emotional health. Much like Sarah said, really making sure that we have non-harmful, non-drug related alternatives, basically, to really take a step and become more self-aware and really progress and process your emotions, if you will. And we do that through digital tools, blogs, social media, webinars, and what we're talking about here, of course, Shadow's Edge, the self-help game. And it all started with a book, a self-help book, with our founder, Sherry Sobrado, who's a cancer survivor, and she created the self-help book for kids that were dealing with serious health challenges. And since we also have this stress Olympics or this epidemic, as Sarah said, we saw that there's a much wider use for it. And so based on that book and that she has distributed for free to hospitals around the US, she then decided we needed a digital product. And then that's where I came in with our team. And we made this game, Shadow's Edge. And it takes, as you say, it's based on narrative therapy. And it takes psychoeducational content right to where young people are on their devices playing games. So that's the basis of it. It also uses principles of narrative expression and of artistic expression and mindfulness. So we ask them concretely to journal according to prompts in the game. And then we also ask the kids, the teens, to express themselves in graffiti because it's a city. We use metaphors for all of it. So we take players through the journey of when something really rough happens with you, when you're in disruption, your life has been disrupted, to in a little bit faster way, starting them to recognize, to become self-aware, to be able to manage their emotions better, through to that stage of discovering how everything that's happened to them actually is bound into their life and how it becomes part of themselves, which is the basis of narrative therapy, if you will. So it's like a story, right? So Shadow's Edge is a city that's been hit by a storm, and you as the player, you come into this beautifully designed world with Unity, obviously. We use the game mechanics and the metaphors to really help the player engage and progress through these stages of emotional processing and help them understand what they're going through and what they can do. As they start doing that, they have to find pages of a missing journal, and then they have to journal on them. There are prompts in there, much like you would get in and around therapy. And then they have to share their art. And each of those things, as they do that, they have an impact on Shadow's Edge, on the world of Shadow's Edge. They actually start healing the city plants will come back, flowers will grow, creatures will come back. So every step that they take, the city gets more meaningful again and becomes beautiful again, even with everything that has happened to the city, basically. So that's sort of the metaphor for progressing through it. And last but not least, we also have a communication in there. We have an in-game community. I loved also what Sarah said about that, about being, more active and really reaching out. And that's exactly what we stand for too. So we ask our players to reach out to other players by sharing their art, not the journal, because that's private, but their art, and really be able to comfort others and get inspired by others, but also just to be able to vent in a non-judged way, so that they know that this is a safe community where they can just speak their truth, if you will. And last but not least, we also focus on some mindful exercises in the game. So there's some game mechanics in there, some exercises, wisdoms, things that they can find so they can learn. They can learn social emotional skills, and they can learn to take an active role in their mental wellness.
What I've loved learning about your project, of all of ours, it's probably the most traditional game form, and yet you're using it in such a deeply and impactful and thoughtful way. It's been really amazing to learn more about. I'm going to bring Gabriel up next, but I'm really looking forward to asking follow-on questions when we all reconvene. And Gabriel, I'm excited to have you here. Gabriel is an artist working at the intersection of storytelling, technology, and community, and a multi-layered project, House of Dust, to bring awareness about substance abuse and the LGBTQIA community. And so excited to hear more. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Gabriel Torres. I am an artist from Colombia. Currently in New York. As Melissa was saying, I work in intersections between community, storytelling, particularly theater, and technology. Mostly it has been done through film and thinking about immersiveness inside of spaces. Um, I am particularly new with anything virtual reality and augmented reality and 3D world building related. So please apologize if I end up chopping any terms or things. I'm learning as I go. I am here to talk about House of Dust, which is a project that started after I had an overdose with meth. I struggled with meth addiction for a very long time, and after going through several programs, both government funded and by resources that were available to my community and my family, um, I couldn't understand why I wasn't able to move on, why I was stuck in that particular moment. And I think as an artist, it always comes down to trying to figure out through expression how that can be therapeutic for myself. So after that overdose some years ago, I decided to put together a story that follow a spirits as they meet inside of a place called the Abysm, which is a bar between the living and the dead. And in this place, a goddess invites them to talk about their stories in an open mic before they're able to transcend. And particularly in that moment, I was also going through something in my own personal career in which I was discovering systems of oppression and inequality inside of theater making and performance making, and a really deep conscious thought making of how can I bridge a gap between the representation and the representation that we create in storytelling and then giving resources back to the community. I honestly believe that it's not enough for us to see ourselves be reflected in the stories that we make, but if we're commodifying of stories in a financial way or in a personal way, we need to figure out a way to functionally give back and to give resources and truly figure out a way of healing together. So putting all of this together in a small development residency in the Lower East Side by an organization called Loisaida Inc. While the pandemic started, which is the reason why all of this came to be together, we decided that we wanted to expand the project into community-based activations. One of them is the creation of a garden on the Lower East Side as a place of sanctuary, and particularly because my experience going through government-funded programs felt as if there was always a stigma and a judgment, something that was based on recovery through a system of shame instead of recovery through a system of connection and gathering together. And then the creation of a game, which is House of Dusty Game, and why I'm here today. I had been in conversations with a cognitive developer, a researcher from Columbia University, who has been focusing on thinking about more conscious and seamless ways that we can give information to people, so that people are able to. I think Sarah was mentioning this a lot, and Rosemary has been talking about it, about how we can um, process information in a way that is without stress and they can help us. And putting ideas together, as we say, well, the pandemic is happening. It's also something that we should be thinking about. What is an ethereal way that we can be thinking about giving a resource to people remotely so that they can access it on their own homes? And particularly now that everybody's so isolated, in that the overdoses are going up and that drug addiction is even becoming more of a pandemic than it already is. How can we start to figure out an active way of dealing with it? So we came up with the idea of, why don't we create a game? Why don't we find a way of putting together the resources that you as a researcher have, that are psychological games and things that have been tested, and we put it through a creative outlet and see what happens. And that's how House of Dusk came to be. We are currently finishing the building of 3 mini games that we're going to be testing, thanks to the support of Unity, hoping that we are able to find, through some research, whether they're efficient and find out how we can build from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Why don't we bring everyone back together? And you set us up perfectly for a question. I think everyone in their own way has said that they leaned into this form of media. In some ways, I'm not going to use the word scale because it sounds wrong. I don't think that's how we mean it, but reach, right? So, Gabrielle, what you were just saying about this moment in time, being able to reach people when they're more in isolation. But Rosemary, maybe to start with you, because I know it's a real passion point for you, this idea of democratization and access of these kinds of tools, if you will.
It is. I mean, for me, we're making progress with treating people physically, yet mental health is still full of like stigmas and long processes, difficult diagnoses, and often just really prioritized differently. They're freeing up beds of people who are on suicide watch in hospitals, which, yes, I understand some of it, but also no. And just talk math for a second. According to the World Health Organization, there are 1.2 billion young people. That means 10 to 24 on the planet. And of those, they estimate, before COVID even, that around 20% have mental health issues like anxiety, ADHD, depression. There are just not enough psychologists to deal with that. And so for me, I think it's really just also finding not alternative ways, but finding additive ways. How can we help the psychologists that are currently overworked, that have to deal with all of these serious issues now? How can we help those young people get access to the help they need at the type they want? And I think one of our players just really also sums it up quite easily. She said, she's severely depressed, has been for 4 years, and she says, look, I have therapy Thursday. What happens if I want to self-harm on Tuesday? Right? I can't always just call them. And so she's using Shadow's Edge sort of as a way to self-manage and to really be able to get through to therapy, if you will. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. If we can just help, even with this entire beautifully designed game and all the power the engine brings, we can just save a few people, it's all worth it for me.
I love that you just brought up the voice of a player, because I actually wanted to throw that question to everyone here, which is, can you share back one thing that you've heard back from a player or a user that really sticks with you, or a moment where you felt like, aha, like we're onto something here, if that makes sense. Sarah, is there one for you?
Yeah, a lot. Every single day, specifically inside school systems that are installing these mental health hygiene stations. And I love what you said, Rosemary, about um, it not being reactionary, that they can have it at home and use it at home. And essentially, you know, I dream of a day when mental fitness isn't so much therapy. It's a video game that you play, with your bioinformatics. And so you asked for one story. There, it was a youth, and this is on our Helium blog. You could read about it, but in augmented reality, um, assets, 3D assets, got her through a panic attack. So she has her smartwatch and she's looking at her heart rate. Instead of it being a flat number on her wrist, that data is personified out inside a spatial computing environment. And as she lowers that heart rate, then butterflies will hatch out of this augmented reality chrysalis. And it wasn't a paper bag that she was breathing into, to try to get through that panic attack. It was media. Yeah, drugless, non-harmful coping mechanism, a game that she was playing with her watch that got her through that. So, the power of that is really exciting. And the fact that it happened in her own home, and with the shortage of, counselors, there's no replacement for, professional counseling or psychotropic medication. Of course, those are important things. And what we provide is not a replacement for that, but as additive, as Rosemary said, and as adjunctive, um, video games that you play with your brain patterns and heart rate.
Amazing. Gabriel, you said something incredible when you were presenting. You talked about shame-based, or this feeling that many of these treatments felt centered around shame to you. And I love this multi-layered thing of the theater and the interactivity and the immersive media and the garden and how all of those things are playing together. But if you could put your finger on what you're hoping players leave with, what's the core thing you're trying to share with them?
This, as we start to get together for research, it's something that has been in our mind a lot in my team. I think particularly because thinking about codependency and something with addiction, let's think about this truly works. We don't want to create a tool that then creates dependency on people, right? So we've been thinking a lot about how we can engage, but engage just enough so that it is understood that it is a tool, as Sarah is mentioning, as something that is a tool and just something that you can utilize as a medium, as a media to get somewhere. And in reality, to get to a place where you're able to deal with your own emotions, where you're able to deal with the uncomfortability of being, of having to go through your traumas and flow through things without any type of judgment. That I honestly think is judgment that is based in the world that we live in, and the fact that we live in a world that follows capital and function instead of just being present in the moment. And that connects itself with the reason why the project is multi-layer. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited of being here is because in a crazy way, and this is because I'm a very spiritual person, I do believe that technology and the idea of being able to build virtual worlds and go beyond and transcend in the reality that we're processing right now in our brains is a way of accessing spirituality if we think about it. So that's what I hope to create. We hope to create a space, a gathering space where people are able to think about themselves without judgment and stigma and their position in society, but rather themselves as individuals that are living presently in the moment. And then if that itself is achieved, then think about a community. Think about how that can be a gathering space for people to connect in a way that is healthy, that is not based on the parameters of a government funded structure that requires them to behave in a particular way, but also in a way that they themselves are not going to harm themselves, but rather have created these resources in their mind and their parameters of behavior that will create something healthy together and grow together.
It's amazing. I have a kind of off the wall question for you all, which is how do you believe in, or what do you think about the power of players' imagination as an important component of what you're doing? It feels like it's a piece of what you all are making, if that makes sense. Rosemary.
Yeah, for sure. On our side, if I just want to latch on to Gabriel just for 1 second. So, one thing I think, just inspired by what you said, Gabriel, what's really important, what we always say is the game is not about becoming emotionally healthy, because nobody is, there's no happy ever after in real life. You're not happy and then you're just done. But what you can learn is how to deal with whatever you're going through, so that next time you may be able maybe to know that you're, like COVID, right? We've all gone through hardship just because we're older than youth, and the young people haven't. And so for them, that was the first time, maybe not for all of them, but for a lot of them, that something really bad happens. And so we just want to give them the tool to become happy again, if you will, even for a moment. And yes, absolutely. On the creation side, I mean, that's what inspires me a lot with, creating real-time things. For us, a large part, aside from the journaling, is creating art. So in our city, of Shadow's Edge, they create graffiti. And it is just amazing to see what they create about topics where, it's all about art, and about topics that are just so heartwarming, from identity crises, body dysmorphia, racism, COVID, isolation. I mean, it's amazing what these teens come up with. And the most heartwarming moments for me is when somebody puts themselves out there, like in a really tough and sometimes even really dark way, and I see so many other players, react and be encouraging. That's for me, that's the epiphany of them being able to create, in this world where you have a suspension of disbelief and you can be yourself without any form of judgment.
I have to interrupt because we have a question coming in, Rosemary, for you from the audience, which is, your game sounds amazing. Is it in Spanish?
Yes, actually, it is in Spanish. We're even also now translating it into specifically Colombian Spanish, because we have a
Amazing.
project going on in Colombia around drug abuse, victims of drug abuse, domestic violence, etc., where we'll be releasing a specifically Colombian version with prompts related to that. And it's free. We're a nonprofit organization, so you can just simply download it. There's no purchases, nothing. We just want to help.
Amazing. Amazing. Sarah, also for you from the audience, a question coming about the technical side of making with people's biometric data. That is the extent. I think they're looking at the link between those inputs and Unity as a real-time engine, and maybe to speak a little bit about what you've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. So Helium uses our core technology, which connects biometric data from wearables to spatial computing environments, either in VR or in AR. Hoping to release an API soon. So for all those creators out there, stay close. We would love to enable you also the ability to allow you to control virtual worlds with your brain patterns and your heart rate. And to your question, Melissa, about how the player is involved in that, VR and AR create unique memories that even when you're outside of the goggles, or even though you're away from your asset on your mobile device, you can remember what that feeling that you had inside that magic snow globe that made those flurries fly, so that when you get in a stressful situation, you have that stored memory that you can go back to in that stressful situation and recall it. So it's not all just what happens inside the goggles or in an AR asset through your mobile device. It's really your thoughts do have power to recall that stored memory. You have those healing powers inside you anytime you want. You just have to remember them.
It's fantastic. Gabrielle, I was thinking about what you were saying, and it's almost as though you're describing, I mean, your experience takes place in this moment of transition between life and death, right? It's really questioning, you're taking people to the edge of their mortality for a very specific reason. And it's so fascinating to me, because I know we're all going to be talking about the metaverse a lot today. It's something that scares me as a concept. I think there's a lot of bad building that's going to go on in it. But when I hear about the kind of world building you're working on and why, I think it's really eye-opening of what, the impact it can have when it's being done for positive reasons. I don't know if that elicits a response from you, but I've been thinking about it since.
I've been thinking, and also this is a response to the question about imagination. I was walking home, and on 17th Street and 8th Avenue, next to this theater that it's a dance theater, it's a live arts place. There is a big thing on the wall that says, "Art is the only way to run away from home without leaving home." Um, and I think it really strikes when thinking about imagination and what you're talking about, because when I think imagination is the foundation of hope, and it's also the foundation of creating. And I think it's the moment that we're able to see ourselves projected somewhere else, if we're able to use it in a nurturing way instead of a stressful way. um, we can see ourselves becoming something so beautiful. And then coming back with this idea of death, maybe I now this is more of a philosophical belief, but I think that death is, as a way that we see it right now, is something that inside of our functional world doesn't work, because we stop functioning, we stop working, we cannot give back to economy anymore. But if you think about it, it can also be just a moment of transcendence. It's also the name why the name of the project is called House of Dust, because if you think about it, we're all gonna become dust. But the idea of becoming dust is you become part of the whole once again, and then that dust one day will become a plant, maybe, or will become an animal, or will become some other type of organic material. Matter doesn't disappear.
And we are wrapping, you guys. I'm sorry, but we all believe the world is better with more creators, and that way we believe in Unity's mission. So it's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.